Married at First Sight, Season 16, Episode 12. So, this episode featured a visit to each couple from Dr. Pepper. While I think she gave some good advice to some of the couples, I believe it may be too little too late. These couples are so far down the I don't find you attractive rabbit hole that they don't have enough time to get out of it. I'm Tamara, and this is Tamara Lynette Tales. Let's talk about this episode. Jasmine and Airris. During their visit with Dr. Pepper, the first thing I noticed is mid-sentence when Jasmine was talking, one word, Airris would have his arm around her back, and then the next word, his arm was on his side. These dang editors duct taping sentences together is real and no joke. Anyway, I felt bad for Jasmine when she talked about how Airris's lack of attraction hurt her feelings, and self-esteem and loving herself was something she was working on before the show. It's just reason number 379 why they should not have taken a chance on a 39-year-old man who was running the streets, never been in love, and favorite color is orgy. These are real people's spirits and well-being they're gambling with. And oddly enough, Jasmine was hoping that Airris would be the one to lead them into deeper conversations that they needed to have, and is disappointed that they're not having it. Ma'am, have you met your husband? Going deep for him has nothing to do with talking. Dr. Pepper asked her, have you ever considered his lack of attraction is not about you? This guy is 39 years old. Maybe he has other things that are getting in the way. Dr. Pepper, if you knew this 39-year-old had other things in his way, why did you cast him on your show? So Airris talked about all the deaths he's endured. He lost his father, his best friend, and his roommate in college. So now he's afraid of being close to people because he's afraid that they're going to leave him too. I see what he's saying, but I don't think it applies to Jasmine. I don't believe he's afraid of losing her. I believe he thinks she's boring, unattractive, and not a freak in them sheets. So Jasmine talked about how her parents never fought in front of the kids. So if they had a disagreement, they never knew. And however they resolved it was done behind closed doors. And this is why she thinks she's so non-confrontational and doesn't have the tools to resolve conflicts in her own marriage. I don't know about that. It's not uncommon for parents to not fight in front of their kids. Oftentimes, we learn how to resolve conflicts through our own disagreements with classmates, siblings, and friends as we grow up, not exclusively from parents. In the end, Dr. Pepper told Jasmine that her challenge will be to start speaking up for herself and communicate with Airris. And Airris needs to not be the runner that he's been and get to know his wife on a deeper level. I don't like this advice because they are not a good match. She deserves someone who will build her up and really appreciate her, while in the meantime, Airris and his cousin need to go to family therapy. Later on, they pulled questions out of their jelly jar as part of their vulnerability task from production. But question after question, Jasmine had nothing in her tank to give. What would make you feel secure in this marriage and why? I can't think of anything. The thing I would like you to know about my upbringing is, I feel like we tackled that. The hardest thing I've had to forgive is, you go first. Jasmine, girl. On Afterparty, she said, at this point, she's worn out and I don't blame her. She's been trying over and over and over again with this man and getting nothing in return except for shallow sexual innuendo from a man who doesn't want to have sex with her. I don't blame her for not wanting to be vulnerable with someone who has given her no reason to be. So Airris decided to answer the question about the hardest thing he's had to forgive. He talked about his friend who took his own life, and he held a grudge for how his friend's actions affected the mom and the dad and himself. So to the confessional cam, Airris said that Jasmine told Dr. Pepper that she wanted to have these deeper conversations. So he's opening up about these past traumas and she's got nothing in return. I'm not sure he opened up to her to be vulnerable. I think it was more like, come on now, it's not that big of a deal to tell a personal story. Whatever energy he was giving her, she was not feeling it and she shut down like a Radio Shack. Later on, Airris met up with Jasmine's mom. So apparently Jasmine's dog chewed on one of his shoes. He said he was mad, but surprised how quickly he got over it. That dog was giving him a warning. Keep treating my mom like this, and next time it will be a shoe you really care about. Anyway, when Jasmine's mom said that Jasmine told her that they decided to wait until after decision day to have sex, Airris responded by saying, "To me, I'm about connection, which is why I'm searching for more information from her when we are having conversations." Bull spit! Are you kidding me? All the orgies and casual sex you've been having is not about building connections, Mr. Blow Her Back Out. It's the complete opposite. I'm like, how the hell are you saying this with a straight face? At this point, I don't believe either of them are taking this marriage seriously. I think they're just trying to figure out how to play the game until decision day. During Nicole and Chris's visit with Dr. Pepper, Nicole talked about how her first relationship jacked her up for all of her other relationships. She's been afraid to be vulnerable because vulnerability made her weak, and being weak is what caused her to be hurt in the first place. And when a guy would treat her with respect, she'd push them away. So to me, this explains why she has such a doom and gloom approach to this relationship. Even though she says she's happy and really likes Chris, she keeps waiting for something bad to happen to ruin it. Now, this is a bad place to be in. I've dated guys like this, and it's like having a relationship in a haunted house during Halloween. They are so jumpy for me to blow up or say something crazy. Like, aha, there it is. I was right. I knew you were crazy. I was just offering you a butter knife because yours fell on the floor. Calm down, cocaine bear. Anyway, afterwards, when they were answering their jelly jar questions, there was one that asked, "What do you feel shame about?" Now, remember how Nicole said earlier that she allowed her ex to burn her because he said, "If you love me, you'll let me do it." Well, when her mom saw the burn and asked her about it, she was too ashamed to tell the truth, so she lied and said she burnt herself with a curling iron. But it turns out she never told her mom that her boyfriend did it. Her mom will find out, or found out, by watching this episode. Nicole, that's a big secret to keep all this time, but that goes to show that she knew in that moment that what he was asking her was crazy, but her self-esteem was so low, she went along with it. She did admit that she had low self-esteem, but this really shows how low it was. Meanwhile, Chris went over Nicole's dad. All he had to do was go to goat yoga with him. Her dad went as far as telling Chris that he could call him dad now. That was quick, so now I'm confused. Does her dad still think Chris needs to assert more big dick energy? When Kirsten and Shaq were prepping for their visit with Dr. Pepper, Kirsten said she wishes they had an expert with them when they were having that conversation where Shaq told her that she thinks it's all about her. I know I keep harping on this, but they need to at least let the experts send the couples a note, an email, cave drawings, or something. These couples want and need help. They've been thrown in a situation that is not normal. Anyway, when they met with Dr. Pepper, I noticed that when they first started talking to her, Kirsten put her hand on Shaq's hand and scooted over a little bit to get a little closer. It's kind of like a, "See, Mom, I'm trying. He's the one that's not interested," even though I told him that his bald head was ugly, he has bad jokes, speaks to me like a kid, and can't dance. But he's the one that's tripping, not me. So anyway, when Kirsten talked about how her parents divorced when she was young and she didn't understand why, from there she closed herself off and basically figured out her own problems. I kind of see how this can relate to her marriage, but it doesn't explain why she has been so superficial. Because even before she got married, she told Dr. Pepper that her husband needed to have a specific size disco stick. I believe she said 7 inches. And of course, the first thing she focused on when she saw him was his bald head. So I think there's more to why she's the way she is than her parents' divorce. Shaq said that his mom worked a lot when he was growing up. The food was on the table, but his mom wasn't there. And he didn't meet his dad until he was 17 and felt shameful about his dad not being around. To me, this explains exactly why he feels so strongly about being a mentor to young men. I bet he wishes he had that growing up. Dr. Pepper put the blame on Shaq that they aren't kissing. Since Kirsten is asking for her forehead kisses and complaining when she's not getting them, it's somehow Shaq's fault that their intimacy isn't where it should be. Dr. Pepper told Shaq that he needs to step into his masculine energy and start upping the kissing game. Otherwise, she's not gonna feel desired. Masculine energy, is that the same as big dick energy? I'm asking for a friend. Anyway, I totally disagree. Feeling desired is a two-way street. Kirsten rejected Shaq hard in the beginning. She knows he wants her, so now it's her turn to go in for the lip kiss, even though it's gonna be a bad one, and show Shaq that she wants him. So later they went back to their apartment and Kirsten was asking Shaq for help with her business logo and building a website. He said he knew how to do all that stuff. And she was like, you know what? You're going to have to send me an invoice. And he was like, you think I'm going to charge you? She said, oh, you don't have to charge me. I'll pay you back in other ways. What other ways? A cup of coffee, a ride to work, gift card to Tinder? Are you seriously coming on to Shaq or are you playing games? Girl, you are giving so many mixed signals that at this point, all I hear is static. So their little body paint moment. First of all, I was distracted by the tags on Shaq's shirt, just a scratching his neck all up. I assume he was wearing a shirt with a logo or something, so they made him turn it inside out. But I wonder why he just didn't put on a different shirt. Anyway, surprisingly, she was into it. Sashayed out of the bedroom, posing all sexy and whatnot. He did his little hand painting on her body, and he was serious too, like a little Shaka Angelo over there. Kirsten has come a long way because there was no chance she would have done this a few weeks ago, because then she was telling him off camera to not touch her. So after he was done making her look like Rainbow Smurf, Shaq pulled out the whipped cream and strawberries, which should have been sexy. But the way he was shaking that whipped cream bottle, it looked like he was about to go tag a wall on the side of the freeway. So he walks up to her and asked, do you trust me? And she said yes and opened up her mouth, and all we heard was that dude was spraying so much whipped cream in her mouth like he was icing a 3-layer cake. But Miss Thing took it like a champ and even let him pop that strawberry in his mouth and dip it in her whipped cream. She even asked for seconds. And the way she was smacking on his lips didn't look like bad kissing to me. I bet you his chocodile was twitching, woke it right up. Then she tried to turn up the heat by giving him a little body roll. All I can say is that brother was thirsty. And by thirsty, I don't mean desperate. He was so busy slurping whatever was in his cup like it was the last sip on earth. He wasn't even studying her and her little body roll. That was such an odd moment. Like, dude, this is what you wanted. Put down the peach schnapps. It's go time. To the confessional camp, she said that consummating the marriage will help their intimacy grow. But if we consummate it tonight, only me and Shaq will know about that. I don't know what to think about Kirsten 2.0. 1 week, I think she's faking it for the cameras, and the next week she does something to make me think she's feeling him. Then the next week, I'm sure she's faking it again. On one hand, I'm thinking having sex with him in order to fake it for the camera is going a bit far, so she's probably into him. But on the other hand, I'm like, heck, people have casual sex every day under lesser circumstances, so she could still be putting a show on for the cameras. I don't know. What do you think? Gina and Chuck Norris, when these two buddy old pals met with Dr. Pepper, it sounds like Gina has been going into Chuck's room and hanging out, chatting it up at night with him and her dog. So Gina said they've been focusing on having fun, but Chuck is like, I want to know who the real Gina is. She opened up a bit and said she struggled with vulnerability. She grew up with a single mom and has a hard time opening up to men, but can easily open up to her girlfriends at the salon because she owns a salon, you know. Whenever I hear a cast member talk about how they have a hard time opening up, I always wonder what their game plan was when applying for a show that only gives them 8 weeks to open up and hopefully fall in love. Like, you can't just walk into it with that same disposition. Like, I'm going to marry this guy and make him wait 7.5 months for me to open up. He'll be long gone by then. Anyway, Chuck said he has no problem being vulnerable and he's an open book. He talked about being in a 3-year relationship where that person had a false persona for the entire 3 years. He initially thought she was the one. They bought a house together, making future plans. But later he learned that she wasn't the right person when she came to him and said that she had a calling and wanted to move out of state to follow it. That last part, he said on Afterparty. I have a hard time believing that she was deceiving him the entire 3 years. That's a long time to fake the funk. Over time, she may have come to realize that marriage, family, and a white picket fence just wasn't for her. Anyway, it turns out when he tells her a story about himself, he feels like that's her opening to share a story about herself and lead into a deeper conversation. But she said hearing a story about his childhood isn't a signal for her to go deep. He would need to ask her specific questions for her to open up, which was frustrating to Chuck because he feels like just throwing out questions to her is just a Q&A and not organic. And I see both sides. But in this scenario, I'm going to side with Chuck. Gina, y'all got 8 weeks to dump as much information about yourself on each other as you can. You already stepped out of your comfort zone by marrying the man. What are you waiting for? Do you expect him to Jimmy Kimmel you? Have a band play a song or two to loosen you up a little bit? Ask a bunch of questions so you will finally tell him things about yourself that you should have told him 3 weeks ago? Girl, you better speak now or forever hold your peace in the divorce line. When they got their jar, they both seemed to open up and share some information that may help them out. Like when Gina talked about her dad not being around when she was young, she internalized it and believes if an important person like her dad doesn't want to get to know her, why would any other man? I hear that, but then my question is, if you want to be married but can't open up, who are you showing up as? Like, who are you to your husband? These two are on the friend train. I don't see them going past friendship. So as the weeks pass, the lack of chemistry in these marriages just seems to grow. Now, I know that Shaq and Kirsten are allegedly getting closer. Whether or not she's serious, I don't see it lasting past decision day. Nicole and Chris are the only couple to watch this season. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in my next video.